Boom, we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening. Welcome back to another week of the Iowa Hawkeye football preview episode. This week, of course, is the game preview for Iowa versus Northwestern. And on the surface, initially, this was just one of those games. Yes, a Big Ten West opponent, but Northwestern has been in a rut. They lose their historic coach who played for the program and helped build this program up and have them play in two Big Ten championships games, yada yada yada. And before the season started, a lot of people were saying that Northwestern would be lucky to win 4 games and all of these things. I mean, Northwestern really was in despair. They had a brutal season last year, didn't really have a ton of guys returning. They even lost a lot of guys from last year's team. But after this past week where they have defeated Maryland, not the greatest victory in the world, but certainly a decent victory, which, by the way, I said this in my Big Ten Whip Around show. I have been saying to be careful about Rutgers and Maryland. They have not really played anybody this season of note. Their schedule is not the greatest, and to be cautious about how you view them and how good they are this year. But nonetheless, Northwestern defeated Maryland, and they're at 500. They're 4-4, and I could absolutely see them winning 6 games this season, which would 100% be a positive, successful season for Northwestern, given the circumstances and the preseason expectations. So this game is looking a little more difficult than expected. The game is going to be on the road for the Iowa Hawkeyes, and we're going to be doing our usual stuff, looking at team stats, individual stats, ESPN's Power Index, Vegas, betting odds, and all that good stuff. But before we get into any of that, I want to ask you guys to consider smashing that subscribe button, support your boy. At the very least, like, comment, share. If you guys want to donate to the channel, you guys absolutely can. Support your boy's copy habit. Without further ado, let's get into this. So before we look at ESPN's kind of game summary, this is Northwestern starting quarterback, Ben Bryant. He has 926 yards, 6 TDs to 3 INTs with a quarterback rating of 41.5. I was already on this page, so I thought I'd just show that real quick. This game will be televised on Peacock. It's at 12:30, I believe, probably Eastern time. So this will be a morning game for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Might be Pacific time considering where I'm at. So, who knows? But you guys can check the time. Either way, it's on Peacock. Northwestern comes into this game 4-4 with a recent victory over Maryland, 2-3 in the conference. Iowa comes into this contest 6-2, 3-2 in the conference with losses to Minnesota after the controversial alleged invalid fair catch after losing to Minnesota on the road. Cooper DeJean, aka Cooper DeJean, with the alleged invalid fair catch. So like I said, I mean, just this game, and historically, guys, especially under Kirk Ferentz, Iowa has struggled playing Northwestern on the road. They've kind of struggled against Northwestern at large. Now, then again, it was when Pat Fitzgerald was the head coach, and now they have a new head coach. And so I wouldn't say all the same things apply, but this is a much more interesting game. And I want to say this right off the bat, guys. Iowa, and I said this in my preview of Iowa versus Minnesota, and I will say it again. Iowa is the more talented team. They are the better team. But due to the ineptitude of this Iowa Hawkeye offense, which all fans need to be discussing, and by the way, guys, I am officially done with Brian Ferentz. He needs to go. I don't know and George Barnett, you could definitely make the case that he needs to go as well. Uh, Ultimately, it's very hard to assign the percentage of blame if it's all on Brian Ferentz, if it's 25, if it's part him, whatever percentage that is, Kirk Ferentz, part George Barnett, who knows, okay? But either way, Brian Ferentz is not getting it done. And, there is some time left, but he's not gonna, at this point, it's very unlikely he's gonna hit his 25 points per game average. And because of that, the point I'm getting at here is Iowa will make this game closer than it needs to be. And I hate to say it, but it's the truth. And regardless of how you feel about the invalid catch or not invalid, whatever the case may be, the bottom line is Iowa's offense was as big of an issue and as big of a reason why Iowa lost that game as the call on that fair catch, okay? Or non-fair catch, whatever you want to say. So we need to be honest about this stuff, guys, and really call it for what it is. Regardless of how much you love the Iowa Hawkeyes, we just need to call it how it is. And I don't really see that changing this year. So that's why I think Iowa will make this game closer than they need to, which I will get into further at the end of this video. But point is, this game is far more interesting and tricky, a potential trap game, at least in my eyes, than previously thought. Now, ESPN does give Iowa a 78, ESPN Analytics does give Iowa a 78% chance to win this game compared to Northwestern 22%. We can go ahead and look at the team stats. They still have Cade McNamara as the leading passer for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Let's go ahead and pull up the stats for Deacon Hill. So you guys know that I do think that Deacon Hill has a lot of qualities that could make him a potentially good quarterback. Probably not in this Iowa Hawkeye offense, albeit, but he has a big arm. He's a big guy. He has been given comparisons to Ben Roethlisberger just as far as his size. He's 6'3", 258 pounds. I mean, this is a big guy, and I think he actually does move. A lot of people think that he is like a statue back there. I think he moves better than Nate Stanley, than Spencer Petras. By no means is he elusive or anything like that, but he was also recruited to play linebacker. So he is an athletic guy. He has on the season 427 yards, 2 touchdowns to 3 INTs with a quarterback rating of an 8.4, guys, an 8.4. That is atrocious. I made a Facebook post that, and I think I said it in my post-game show, that I think Iowa needs, they won't, but they need to give Joe Labus a legitimate look. A lot of people said that they need, or I saw some people say that they should give a legitimate look to Marco Lainez. I think it's too premature for that. He is a true freshman. Now, if he's ready to go, I'd be all for it for him to play. But, ultimately, I think at almost all costs, you should try and redshirt your quarterback, unless for sure he's able to go or you have nowhere else to turn. So I'm not there yet where I believe Iowa needs to look at Marco Lainez, but they need to look at Joey. But who knows? They might be at that point at some point in this season. But right now, I'm not quite there yet. But they do need to give a legitimate look to the quarterback who had as good of a performance in his victory over Kentucky as either Deacon Hill or Cade McNamara has had all year this year. Okay. Joe Labus, while he doesn't have as big of an arm as Deacon Hill, he probably has a slightly better arm than Cade McNamara. He's 6'4". He's a big guy, and he is much more mobile and athletic than either of these two quarterbacks. And Deacon Hill and Cade McNamara are definitely more mobile than Petras or Stanley. And my point about it is if you're Iowa, there's two main thoughts I have on this. Okay. It can't get much worse. The bottom line is Deacon Hill has struggled even more so than Cade McNamara. And it can't get much worse. Ultimately, Iowa, unlike most programs, has a defense that is so good and a special teams that is so good to where you can afford to take a risk and take a look at a different quarterback. You can afford to do that. Other teams don't have a defense that can shoulder the load like the Iowa defense can. Iowa's defense is doing it now. So I don't see what the big trepidation is for Iowa to give Joe Labus a legitimate look. I really don't. The second thought I have on it is if it's become apparent through the Petrus years and now this year that the Iowa coaching staff, specifically Kirk Ferentz, absolutely struggles with the concept of a good practice player and what they see in practice versus a good game player. And ultimately what matters most is what we see in the game, because that's what counts, and that is the stats and the wins that actually show up on ESPN's statistical page. Okay, that's what goes down in the record books. And I don't see what the big trepidation is overall with giving Joe Labus a big look. And Kirk Ferentz this year and many times before has said in his defense of the current starting quarterback, whether it was Petrus or now Deacon Hill or even Cade McNamara, is, well, we see what they do in practice. You guys don't. You, the fans, you, the media, do not see what we see in practice. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. But practice is not the end all be all. It's not. It's something, but it's not the end all be all. There is such a thing as a difference between somebody who's a good game player versus a good practice player. Now, some people aren't the best at either. Okay, but I wish the Iowa coaching staff would acknowledge that and at least consider the possibility. Iowa's leading rusher is LaShawn Williams, 86 carries, 472 yards, 1 TD. Cameron Porter is the leading rushing guy for them, 93 carries, 346 yards, 2 TDs. I think I said receiving for LaShawn Williams. Rushing yard leader for Iowa, LaShawn Williams. Receiving yards, Eric All, he's currently out. B. Kurtz is the leading receiver for them, 30 receptions, 474 yards. I think we need to look at Iowa's team stats really quickly. The updated depth chart is not out yet for Iowa. I mean, look at this, guys. Deacon Hill has a completion percentage of 37.8, guys. Okay. They give him a rating on this of a 75. I think the rating that you guys saw is a total QBR rating. I'm not sure what the difference is. This one here on this page gives him a 75, as you guys can see. So you guys know I'm telling the truth here. I mean, 37.8 is just not good. Now, in fairness to Deacon Hill, Brian Ferentz does not do a good job of generating rhythm throws. He started to do that against Minnesota, and then he went away from it. And that is the story of Brian Ferentz, is going away from things that are good and positive and abandoning them too quickly. And that is like what I mean when I say Brian Ferentz calls plays like an offensive lineman. He doesn't have a feel for that a quarterback would have, or a receiver or a running back. He doesn't have a feel for the offense and what's working and what's not working that you would expect specifically with a quarterback. Caleb Johnson, 278 yards rushing. Hopefully Josiah Patterson is back this week. He's been out much longer than expected. Initially Kirk Ferentz said that Josiah Patterson had less of an injury than Caleb Johnson did. Now, I think Josiah Patterson did have a secondary injury as well after that. So Deontay Vines is now Iowa's leading current receiver with 125 yards. Nico Ragaini, aka Nico Ragaani, aka Nico Ragaini, 111 yards receiving. It's crazy how Nico Ragaini is, in theory, the best he's ever been. This is his 6th year in college football. Yet, statistically, his numbers have regressed each year. And I don't think it's his fault. I really don't. I think much of it has to do with the offensive play calling. Seth Anderson, 94 yards. And that is that. So, all right, guys, here are the team stats. Yards passing, or total yards, 232 to 307. Yards passing, 116 to 207. Yards rushing, 115 to 99. Yards allowed, 314 to 351. Pass yards allowed, 189 to 187. Rush yards allowed, 124 to 164. So, it seems that there's perhaps an opening for Iowa to get the run game going. I do think the run game has been slightly improved this year from last year, but again, not really where you would hope for it to be. The bullies of the Big Ten, and Iowa has not been that for a long time, guys. They just haven't. We've seen glimpses of it at different points in the year in past, the past 5 seasons, but specifically the last 2-3 years, Iowa has been abysmal running the football. Here are the last 10. Like I said, they got the victory over Maryland. I'm sure Northwestern did beat Minnesota. I'm sure they'd love to have the loss against Nebraska back. You guys can see Iowa lost to Minnesota 12-10. I mean, just my thoughts looking at Iowa's results, like no team in Iowa's past 4 games has scored more than 17 points. I would say at least 75% of college football teams, if they were able to hold, well, at least half of NCAA football teams, if they were able to hold teams to that total, most of those teams would be 4-0. Okay. And it just is what it is. I mean, I don't, at this point, I really don't know how much more I can say about Iowa's offense. It's just, it really is what it is, and I hope desperately that it'll improve, but it's very hard to find hope with it. The line for this game, Iowa is only a 6-point favorite because of how atrocious their offense is. And the over and under for this game is 31, guys. 31. Unbelievable. I can hardly even believe it myself. Here's the total defensive stats. Michigan, Penn State 1-2. My Air Force Falcons number 3, Ohio State 4. Iowa is number 20. But then again, Iowa has never been a total defense darling per se. They're more of a points per game darling. Northwest, but still being top 25 defensively is excellent. Or top 20. Northwestern is 49th with 351.4 for total defense. Let's take a look at total offense here. And guaranteed, both these two teams are second page. In fact, I'm positive of it. Iowa is third page. Northwestern. Let's see where those guys are at. Still not seeing them. Perhaps both these teams will be third page. Iowa State 101. Iowa State, by the way, guys, and I'm happy about this. And you guys have heard me say this before. I'm happy Iowa State is above 500 and playing better, having a decent season thus far. I hope they do keep winning. That's why I always tell you guys, it's impossible to judge the schedule before the season starts because ultimately the season is going to play out. And, what you think all the teams are going to be is not what it's going to be. Okay. There's always teams who are better and worse than what is predicted. Nebraska, number 110, Northwestern, 119. So the good news for Iowa, who is last in total offense in the country by 20 yards, okay, by 20 yards. They're not last by like 2 yards, by 20 yards, 20 plus yards, is that Northwestern and some of these other Big Ten West teams are not much better. I think the worst division in all of college football with offense is the Big Ten West. Northwestern 307.4, 119. I mean, truthfully, guys, the Big Ten West is probably the worst division in all of college football when it comes to offense. Scoring defense, Iowa is 6th in the country, giving up 14.5 points per game. I told you guys that they would end up being top 10, and thus far they are. Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, top 3. You know what's crazy about this, guys? If you look at the top 10 of total defense, Notre Dame, top 20 team. Georgia, number 1 in the country. Air Force, top 20 team, undefeated. Penn State, top 20. Ohio State, top 20. Michigan, top 20. I mean, that says it all, guys. It says it all. So, Northwestern, let's see where they're at. Northwestern is 69th in total, scoring defense, giving up 26 points per game. So, perhaps Iowa actually has some hope offensively this game. And then here we are scoring offense. Northwestern is tied for 107th. They have 139 points scored. Oh, this is first downs offense. That's not what we're looking for. Come on, Nolan. Scoring offense. There we are. Positive that these teams are on page 3. Northwestern tied for 105th, averaging 21.8 points per game. Illinois 111th, Minnesota 108. Again, not going to find a much worse division in football, all of college football, when it comes to the offense than the Big Ten West. Iowa 118 out of 130 teams, averaging 19.5 points per game. All right, guys, now is the time for my game prediction when it comes to Iowa versus Northwestern. And as I said at the introduction of this video, coming into this season, even a few weeks into this season, I would not be as concerned for this game. But due to Northwestern playing a little bit better than most people expected, and really they have nothing to lose, this is going to be a tough game for Iowa. I fully envision this being a close game, and much closer than it should be. Iowa is absolutely the more talented team, and they are better than Northwestern in 2 of the phases of the football game, special teams and defense. But due to how atrocious the offense is, this game will be much closer than it needs to be. I think the main hope that Iowa has, again, and this is every single week, is being able to run the football and to having big plays. At this point, Iowa's offense has been negated to either having decent running games, which has been mostly a rarity, or, dang, I think my hair looks pretty good today. Or number 2, having big chunk plays. And that's really it. At this point, either Iowa scores on big chunk plays, they might be able to get a little bit on the ground, or other than that, if they can score in their first 2 series of the scripted plays, that's it. I've said this time and time again after I read it from either Blackheart Gold at one of the Iowa Hawkeye sites, and it's very, very true. Brian Ferentz, I think it was from Hawk Central, actually. Brian Ferentz is able to script plays for the first couple of series, but the in-between portion of the game, the everything else after the first, not even in between, everything henceforth of the first 2 series, Brian Ferentz struggles. And you even see that even more when you look at series to series. if you look at, Brian Ferentz, if the offense does not score on a big chunk play, they are one of the worst teams in college football when it comes to taking the ball from their 20-yard line and putting together multiple first downs en route to a touchdown or scoring points. Iowa absolutely struggles to do that. It's almost impossible. Part of me wants to show, in fact, I think I will, the scoring drives of Iowa versus Minnesota. I'm going to pull that up now. So here it was, guys. Iowa's remaining offensive drives after their scoring play. So first quarter, punt, 3 plays, 9 yards, punt, punt. Remaining first quarter drives, 9 plays, 18 yards, 3 punts. Second quarter, fumble, punt, touchdown. Second quarter drives, 13 plays, 60 yards, 1 punt, 1 turnover, 1 touchdown. And second half, it was even worse. Third quarter, punt, fumble, punt. Third quarter drives, 8 plays, minus 3 yards, 2 punts, 1 turnover. Fourth quarter, punt, 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 INT. Fourth quarter drive, 16 plays, 5 yards, 3 punts, and 1 turnover. So, guys, make no mistake, this Iowa offense is actually going backwards. And, at this point, for me, it's very difficult to come on here and speak in my normal, vivacious, optimistic manner about this Iowa Hawkeye team that I love, because we just keep seeing this same thing week in, week out. And, there's some Iowa fans who are absolutely okay with it, but I'm not. Now, as for this game, though, I fully expect this to be a close game. I think the over and under of 31 points is spot on. I don't think Northwestern ultimately will be able to score enough points to hit the 31 or get close to the 31. But I'm perfectly okay with that number. Ultimately, I think Iowa is the better team. They find a way to win this game, either from a Cooper DeJean punt return touchdown or kickoff return touchdown or interception touchdown from him or Sebastian Castro or Xavier Wampa. Maybe Iowa is able to get some things going on the ground. I'm probably going to go with Iowa winning this game 15-10. I don't think Iowa will win this game by double digits. The game will be closer than it needs to, but yet again, the Iowa defense and the special teams will be excellent. All right, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Be sure to check out the Big Ten Whip Around Show plus top 25 scores. If you guys want to donate to the channel, you absolutely can. Thank you guys so much for your support. And I do also want to say, for the Minnesota versus Iowa game, my response to it, I fully am okay with, if you disagree with my assessment of the invalid catch. That's what makes this, such a fun thing to do. And, I don't take any of that stuff personally, just as long as it's done in a respectful manner and things like that. So, that part of doing something like this is having discussions, and sometimes heated discussions that don't get personal. So just know that I read all the comments and I try and engage with every single one of you guys so that this channel can be what it was meant to be. So anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow, and facts are feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love you guys. See you guys this weekend. Go Hawks. Bye.